Monster Hunter Now, Capcom's latest Monster Hunter game, not only does it have a brand new logo, but also we finally know when it's set to release. So essentially today I wanted to go over recapping some of the details that we got to see in the latest Monster Hunter Now digital presentation event. I'm going to be leaving a link in the description below for you guys to pretty much catch up on everything if you decide to watch that. But pretty much I'm going to try to give you a little bit of a condensed version and my takes on what they ultimately said, because there are a lot of details here, and based on what I noticed at the very least in live chat, there's a little bit of a concern growing out of nowhere. I'm guessing people who didn't get access to the closed beta, which a lot of people did not, to be fair, wondering just what is going on regarding the weapons that are going to be available, the monster count, and exactly what they are trying to achieve with this game. So I'm going to try to answer some of those questions while providing you also with the basic information that they said in the presentation. So first and foremost, they already have open registration. Link in the description below for you guys to check that out if you so desire. They basically are saying that the more people that register, the more rewards that will be handing out for people on day one. So of course that always helps. The global release will be on September 14th. So as of the time of this video, it's going up on the 27th of July. We're talking about maybe 6 or so weeks from now, so not too far off. Now, of course, this has nothing to do with Monster Hunter Generation 6, World 2, Paradise, whatever that next mainline game will be. This is his very own standalone thing between Capcom and Niantic. Now, one of the things that they did speak about is that first and foremost, like the title mentions of this video, 13 new monsters were revealed according to them. Remember, for them, a new monster is essentially a monster that hasn't been available in the game prior, so that is Capcom's logic. So they said that 13 monsters are becoming available pretty much right away as of launch. However, they also stated that they are working to add more for day one. So just because we're seeing 13 right now, that doesn't necessarily mean those are the only 13 monsters you're going to have available. As of right now, the list is somewhere along the lines of like typical things we have seen already, but they also mention like Great Jagras, Kuluyaku, Puke, Barath, Great Jigros, Tobi Kadachi, Rathian, Legiana, Rathalos, and Diablos. I believe that's the entire list that they showcase there. So, you know, pretty much a lot of Monster Hunter World stuff that we have kind of already seen. Not big of a surprise there. Ryosu Sugimoto was part of this presentation. You should be seeing him probably play a little bit of the gameplay, which we'll be talking about in a second. He did say that this is a Monster Hunter game, not a Monster Hunter World game. So more monsters from other versions of Monster Hunter will become available, so don't fret too much if you're thinking just, oh, they're just adding world monsters. That is not the case. They're going to add more things from other games, and of course some of the monsters there like Rathalos and Barath or whatever, they're from previous generations anyway, so you know, you shouldn't be too concerned. However, they were asked a couple of key questions which I want to get to right away. First and foremost, they spoke about the potential addition of a new monster. They weren't saying that they're going to have it available at launch. They just said they're looking into it. Of course, that is just for me. The way that I take it, my skepticism meter went off the roof. So basically, it tells me that, of course, they have a brand new monster that they're going to introduce, most likely the final monster, and quote unquote, in the launch area or season 1 or whatever they're going to end up calling it. So my wager would be, you know, of course they're going to have a new monster. They'll just reveal it at a later date. This is literally the first presentation that they're doing for the game other than the original reveal. So of course they're going to, like, you know, keep people hoping to tune in for more details. So a new monster should be able to be coming in. They also asked them regarding such species, and they said yes. A couple of people from Niantic spoke, and they said yes. They're going to be adding a couple of such species. They weren't specific as to which or how many, but they said post-launch content is something that they're already working on and considering. Of course, Ryosu Sugimoto reiterated this multiple times. They have been working on this game for 4 years. So it's not like they don't have a relatively good roadmap heading forward. So they know what they are doing. They're just not going to reveal everything right away. They also spoke about the fact that Elder Dragons will essentially, they said, basically, they didn't say yes, they're coming, no, they're not coming. They just basically said it wouldn't be a Monster Hunter game without Elders. So, you know, of course, expect at the very least the Kushala, the Auras, Teostras, Camellios of the world. That's just kind of a given. But I also would expect, you know, a couple of the newer ones as well, so that shouldn't be too much of a surprise. Now, what was a surprise at the very least to chat was the weapon choices here. They just confirmed 6 weapons as of right now. These are the weapons that are going to be available at launch, and people in chat were not too happy, because they basically just revealed that 6 weapons are going to be available. So we're looking at things here like sword and shield, great sword, long sword, hammer, light bow gun, and the bow. So 2 ranged weapons, no heavy bow gun, hammer, long sword, great sword, and sword and shield. So a lot of Gunlance people are already not too happy, of course, typical Gunlance. They're never happy. But things like dual blades, for example, not shown, not mentioned. They're acting like they don't exist. Hunting horn, for example, not mentioned. Insect glaive, lance, name them. There's just so many other weapons that they just decided to kind of like forego this time around. Again, they're going to be adding those in, and this is for me, and this is something that I've been like talking about every time I talk about Monster Hunter Now. This is one of the sticking points that I keep going back to because I did play the closed beta, so it's one of those things that I noticed. You unlock weapons based on your HR level, so you have to play the game to unlock all the weapons. You don't even have access to them early on. And then on top of that, now we have confirmation that all the weapons are not going to be available, at the very least on the early onset. So it's one of those things where, like, a lot of people are just going to be easily turned off by the fact that their favorite weapon is not in the game on day one, and they just want to be able to have access to it. So, it's going to be a bummer, but that is something that they're going to have to deal with going forward. They spoke about the proximity thing. They said, I believe it was 200 miles or 200 meters. If you are choosing to play with players online, essentially you are jumping into a hunt. They did showcase that the hunts probably are going to take a little bit too long to kind of like just match up with random players, because even them playing in the stream, and this is something you should be able to see in the gameplay clips that I clipped out from the presentation itself, they just kind of take a little bit too long to set up. You're crafting your armor, you're upgrading your gear, you're doing whatever it is that you're doing. Everyone has to go through their setup first, and then you start the hunt. So for me personally, I think online hunts, which is the entirety of this game, for me at the very least, is going to be a little bit too tedious. It takes too long. It's not just press a button, you get thrown into a quest, and you're ready to go. So, maybe they do a faster matchmaking or something, maybe with bots or something, I would assume. But the way that they showed it right now, it just kind of took way too long. Then we actually take a closer look at the combat, which ultimately that's what a lot of players are going to notice, and this game is going to live and die by. The fact that you have combat that is just mobile game related, right? Monster Hunter Explorer, like one of the reasons why a lot of people didn't necessarily gravitate towards that game, even though it had so many awesome things going for it. I spoke about it before. Monster Hunter Explorer was the original, or one of the original Monster Hunter mobile games in Japan at the very least. Here, the combat looks very tappy, very, swipey type of thing, typical mobile thing or whatever, which I've seen, and a lot of people have been able to be privy to, but it's one of those things where, like, you're doing this hours upon hours upon hours. At some point, it doesn't feel tactile enough. It doesn't feel, good enough, and that was one of my takeaways when I was actually able to play it. One of the things that they did also mention is that monster attacks have clear tails. You'll notice that the monsters kind of begin to glow red, like they ate a berry or something, like they just ate one of those power boosting berries or whatever, and they just kind of like clearly tell that they're about to attack you. So it's one of those things where, like, every monster attack, at the very least the ones that they showcase here with I believe it was Great Jaguars and Tobi Kadachi, I believe the gameplay that they showcase here, you do get to see them, or Palomalu, I believe it was. They just kind of showcase that, yeah, every one of the monster attacks just have a very clear, easy tell. So it's one of those where, like, is it going to be really that much of a challenge? We don't necessarily know. They're just showing very early gameplay. So, we don't have to really too much to go by. Endgame content is, far long removed from this. Now, one of the sticking points that I did notice with chat as well as live chat was, going about their business, was the fact that they did specifically mention there's a 75-second kind of threshold that they're hoping to hit, where every hunt, whether it is that you're doing it by yourself or you're doing it with online players, you have this 75-second window that they kind of want you to be able to kill a monster before that threshold is hit. And whether that's long enough or not long enough, or you want hunts to be faster or whatever the case is, is entirely up to you. But that seems to be what they're targeting. They want hunts to be quick, easy. You go in, you get your materials, you go out, you craft your stuff, you go right back into another hunt. Of course, they mentioned that you can paintball monsters and you can actually, engage with them at a later date if you so desire. You have a timer of about a day and a half, I believe. It's 40 hours or something like that, where you can re-engage with a monster that you already paintball once, re-engage with it later on, bring friends, random strangers, whatever the case is, and be able to do that. So, they're at the very least choosing to do that in that regard. But at the end of the day, they did talk about, like, you have, you can set up your phone to, like, have better battery life, maybe less graphics and stuff like that. They spoke about, little things like that. You can play vertically, you can play horizontally, little basic quality of life stuff that you would expect, but nothing too crazy. Of course, you have they did talk about, like, if you live in, like, a rural area, because this is a Niantic game, so it's very much like Pokemon Go. If you live in a rural area, they did specifically mention that if you want to, like, roam around, you should be able to have access to all of the features that the game has. You don't have to go, like, 5 miles from where you live to be able to do that. But at the same time, I also noticed chat mentioning very quickly that, hey, maybe you just want to use a mod or something and tell the game that you're somewhere else instead of where you actually are, so you don't have to deal with the nonsense of that. When it comes to weapons, one of the things that I do want to quickly touch upon is the fact that they have skills, which is really interesting. Weapon combos are very, kind of automatic in that regard, but they do have skills that you need to kind of pay attention to as they prop up. You can, use those to abuse monsters and that kind of a thing. But you can break parts and stuff like that, collect certain parts, because you're going to need those to upgrade weapons and armors and things like that. So at the end of the day, they're trying to do a full Monster Hunter experience, but there is, those caveats of mobile stuff and whatever it is. So at the end of the day, I will be talking about this on a separate video, a couple of more details, maybe things that I forgot, and some of the blog updates as well. I already saw a couple of blog updates, which I want to update on, translate, and be able to cover at a later date. But if you're brand new to my channel, though, be sure to leave a like and subscribe, hit the bell to receive notifications whenever videos go up, and as always, thank you so much for watching. See ya.